Hey YouTube, welcome back to another episode. Today we are going to be working on wrapping and fletching our arrows. So far we have bare shaft tuned and we have found out which way our arrows naturally want to rotate. So today we're going to start working on those wraps and the fletchings. Stay tuned. Alright everyone, so the items I'm going to be working with today is that we're going to want a mouse pad or some other type of small or soft surface to work with. We have the AE Max Clean for the shafts, and also I'll wipe my wraps down with these. We have our custom wraps that we got from arrowwrap.com by the decal guys. We have our Bits and Burger jig with the left helical clamp. Now remember, we chose the left helical because our arrow wants to spin naturally left off of our bow. So we're going with the left helical. We have the AE Max Bond glue that we'll be using. We have the AE Stealth Max Vanes. And we also have the AE Max Weld primer pin, which is recommended for the AE Stealth or AE Max Vanes to help with the adhesion process because of the polymer that they use for it. The primer pin helps open up the material for the Max Bond glue to work. So those are items that we'll be working with today. Step number one, I'm going to go ahead and take a wipe from the Max Clean arrow cleaner, and I'm just going to clean off the shaft. Alright, clean the shaft off to make sure it's a good contact surface. Here's our black mark from our earlier endeavors, but also there's a little notch right here that for me, now I got this off of Ranch Fairy. He likes to keep that notch to the outside. So in other words, it's going to be to the right of the arrow or the 3 o'clock position of the arrow once it's knocked. So I do the same thing. I thought it was an ingenious thing to kind of keep track of it. Some of you may like for it to be on the inside. Some of you might like for it to be on the outside. It don't matter. It's whatever works best for you. So we're going to clean off that. We're going to clean off all of our shafts. And now we have 6 arrow shafts that are clean. They'll be ready for the wrap to be installed. Before we install the wraps, let's go ahead and use the primer pin on the vanes so it has time to dry. This will allow the product to do what it was intended to do and open up the material or the pores in the vanes to allow for better adhesion. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and shake this primer pin, and also want to find a paper towel or something and blot this down on that paper towel to start to get that material, start to get that product to start filling up on that felt tip. Once we got that good and wet, go ahead and grab our first vane. We're just going to go ahead and start to apply this to there, making sure that we cover it completely. We're going to do the same thing for all of the vanes. Now we have all of our vanes that are primed. We're going to let those dry. Give them about a couple minutes to dry. And while waiting for those to dry, we're going to go ahead and start putting the wraps onto the arrows. So we're going to need our mouse pad for this, along with our wraps and the arrows. So we'll check that out. So we have our arrow wraps ready to go. We're going to grab one of our wraps, make sure it's the way we want it to be, and lay it flat on our mouse pad. If you want to use a mouse pad, you could probably use a magazine as well. This is the hardest part here because it likes to stick to your fingers. So just getting that right amount of pressure where you can get it on there and get it set. Alright, so we need to pay attention to where our knock point is, because that's where the arrow is going to, that's where our first vane is going to be. So kind of depending on how we want our wrap to set up. And we'll make sure that we have plenty of room to do this, because we're going to be rolling the wrap. We'll find where that knock point is and how we want that to appear on our wrap here. So I'm going to go ahead and move that knock point a little bit further towards almost like the 3 o'clock, and I'm going to etch up my arrow, lining it up with the knock as best I can to where I make contact. Now you can do this with a magazine or whatever, but I'm applying pressure. This soft surface here allows for even pressure across so that the wrap makes good contact. So then I'm just going to roll. Just going to roll all the way through, roll back and forth a couple times to make sure it's good. And ta-da! We have our first wrap. Knock point hasn't moved yet, so it's still in that position we want it to be. We haven't moved the knock at all. That's my index where I want my cock vane to go, or that primary vane that I'm going to be putting on. So we'll go ahead and repeat the process for the next 5 arrows. And now we have our half dozen arrows that are wrapped and they're ready to be fletched. Alright, so we have our jig set up. We're going to grab our first arrow. Remember, we're looking for that index point. That's going to be our up. That's going to be our up fletching. So we're going to make sure that this gets orientated in there for that primary fletching. Just like so. We're going to take our clamp, which is a left helical. We're going to go ahead and put a vane in it. Now, on these clamps, they have little hash marks. I like to set mine. I like to play around with it to see where it's going to best suit to be on the arrow. Notice how the vane is not making full contact with the arrow. So we're going to have to use those dials to adjust that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen up these dials on the top of the bits and burger. And I'm going to start working with it to adjust this to where this will make full contact with the arrow. This looks pretty good right here. So we'll go ahead and adjust those down. And we'll double check. I'm pushing down on the arrow to make sure it makes full contact. And it looks like we are. Perfect. So now since I have that indexed, I'm going to end up going off of the second. Hash mark here. So there's hash marks go across here. I'm going to make sure that my vanes get lined up with that. So, all right. One of the things you want to make sure you have on tap is a wet rag. Now this will allow us to wipe any excess glue off the shaft before it sets up. So we keep that handy. So what we're going to do is we'll take our fletching. We have our glue, and we're going to run a small bead of glue right down the fletching. A lot goes a long way when it comes to glue and fletchings. So we'll make sure we have a nice even bead. We're going to take our fletching jig or our clamp, and set onto the jig. I like to pull mine all the way back to where the back of the clamp is contacted with the face of the dial, and I'm going to go ahead and push down on the clamp. I'm going to hold it there for about 5 seconds, and then I'm going to release pressure and allow the jig, the magnet on the jig, to do the rest for me. We want that to stay there for about 30 seconds. Once 30 seconds has passed, go ahead and remove the clamp carefully. And remember, we want to rotate it away from the jig. So we'll rotate it. So now we're ready for our next one. Once again, we'll index this exactly the same way. Right off that second. I'm gonna double check, make sure I don't have any excess glue sticking out anywhere though. If there is, I just gently wipe it off. And that's more for aesthetics than anything else. Once again, now I'm going to add a small bead of glue. And just like that, we have a perfectly fletched arrow. Alright, now we have 6 perfectly fletched arrows. We got them wrapped, fletched up with that left helical, based off of what we found out with that natural rotation off our bow, wanting to go off to the left. The next step will be us paper tuning. And then we'll finish the sighting process with the bow, just to make sure these things are hitting spot on. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe, give us a like, and always remember to stay safe out there, and we'll see you on the next one. God bless you guys. Once again, now I'm going to add a small bead of glue.
Ready to form Voltron! Activate interlocks!
Hello?